Guys, it might be time to switch Bitcoin for altcoins. This might be the time to buy altcoins, especially Ethereum. And here's why. Now, one bit, if you want to wait to Bitcoin to retrace to $86,000 and then buy altcoins, that's fine as well, but you are taking a risk that Bitcoin and altcoins do not retrace that much. If you look at the coin market cap, Bitcoin dominance, it's down to about 57.4% last time I checked. And that's with the current dump. So even when Bitcoin goes down, Bitcoin dominance is going down even more. It used to be when Bitcoin dumped, Bitcoin dominance went up. No longer the case. The sentiment has obviously shifted towards Ethereum in the altcoin market. Right now, it's mainly Ethereum, but I think the smaller alts will start to catch up soon. So right now, if you want to switch to Ethereum, and then you want to switch to altcoins a couple weeks later, that's also fine. But there are clues that the market is very strong, and if Bitcoin goes up, the rest of the altcoins will go up harder, and we'll look at some of these signals. Well, first of all, we got to look at Binance sees a big surge in big players as Bitcoin deposits soar 17x. 17x is a pretty big soar. CryptoQuant reveals Binance deposit surge 17x in 2025, led by whales. Analysts see key triggers that could spark the next crypto rally. I mean, a 17x increase in deposits is very large. That could easily go up. Also, stablecoin volumes and minting has gone up to like 68 billion this year. It has slowed down recently, but that's probably because of the massive growth earlier this year. So I wouldn't really be too afraid of that. Binance deposits has surged 17x, driven by whales in 2025. Obviously, people would actually deposit things on Binance mainly to buy more crypto. Now, you might say, like, aren't they depositing Bitcoin on Binance to sell? No, because we've seen multiple reports, like dozens of reports, saying that Bitcoin and maybe even Ethereum holdings have actually dropped on Binance. So they're mainly talking about stablecoin deposits on Binance and fiat deposits on Binance. And obviously, people would actually deposit those things, especially stablecoins on Binance, in order to buy either more Bitcoin or more altcoins. So that's a very, very bullish sign. Market consolidation shows a slower but steady uptrend. If you actually look at the trend on TradingView, you'll see that even if we go down to 86,000, it's still an upward trend because the last bottom was 74,000. So slowly going up, but going up. And of course, we have September rate cut, which I still think we're getting, and ETF approvals in October. So it's like no problemo right now. So CryptoQuant analysts report a major shift in Binance's user base. The average deposit size has skyrocketed to 13.5 Bitcoin compared to just 0.8 Bitcoin at the start of 2024, a nearly 17-fold increase signaling whale dominance. Analysts say this trend is expected. Binance remains the global leader in trading volumes and provides the liquidity big players need. CryptoQuant Insight, the 7-day average deposit hitting a record high of 13.5 Bitcoin, underscores that the exchange is now overwhelmingly favored by whales over retail investors. Experts note the current crypto market is in a long-term consolidation phase. Unlike in previous cycles, the upward trend is developing more slowly. We can definitely see that. Key drivers include entry into spot ETF markets, growing institutional and governmental Bitcoin adoption, capital shift from Bitcoin to altcoins. And there is capital shift because there's a lot more altcoin treasuries now that are appearing. Just check out my last videos if you actually haven't seen that. Like we have Ethereum treasuries, Solana treasuries, Dogecoin treasuries, even Hyperliquid treasuries, and those of smaller coins. Further, CryptoQuant data shows that monthly Bitcoin inflows to Binance have plummeted to recent levels, 5,700 now. Plummeting Bitcoin inflows to Binance is good because if people actually deposit Bitcoin to Binance, that means they're going to sell the Bitcoin. So like slowing Bitcoin deposits to Binance is very good and under the half of the 2020 average. So people are moving these Bitcoins off the exchanges, which means they're not selling. And in that same time, they're moving stable coins on the exchanges, which means they're buying. That's why deposits have actually surged 17x. So obviously, like analysts highlight two upcoming catalysts: U.S. rate cut in September and potential approval of altcoin spot ETFs in October. Now, the U.S. rate cut in September, that's multi-tiered thing. They're hoping for multiple rate cuts because we have an FOMC meeting, I believe, in September, October, and December. So if it's only we get one cut in September and then they're bearish again, probably not going to help too much. But they're hoping that Jerome Powell is open to more rate cuts after September. Obviously, that's going to depend heavily on the PPI and the CPI, which might not actually be that good. But if there is a surge in big players, that might not matter too much. The big whales might want to buy Bitcoin up, especially if they're depositing so much money in the world's largest exchange at Binance. That could easily trigger another rally. And there has been a major shift. They're taking Bitcoin, they're taking basically crypto off the exchanges, taking fiat and stablecoins on the exchanges. That really sets up for a big buying rally. Right now, they're probably just doing some kind of a shakeout before they really rally. It could shake out all the way, I think, to 86K. I don't think it'll get that low, but it is a possibility based on what we see on the charts and what happened last time we had a formation. I've mentioned this in multiple videos before, that the daily 50 MA has started curving downward, and last time that happened, we did dip from 108 to 75 before we went up to 115 or something like that. And then the MACD on the weekly has also gone negative. Same thing, the last time the MACD went negative was in February, and we dipped until early April. And that basically made us go down from once again 108 to about 74. So if you want to wait until we get into the mid 90s, even upper 80s to buy, it's a risk, but I can understand your viewpoint on that. I would probably just DCA right now because there's no guarantee we're going to go down that far. Now, for more further proof that right now might be the time to buy altcoins, we have $5 billion Bitcoin whale bets on Ether upside. So he's actually rotating Bitcoin to buy alts. He sells another 1.1 billion today of Bitcoin to buy Ethereum. So the big whales are actually catching on. A multi-billionaire OG Bitcoin holder is selling a bulk of their long-held Bitcoin gains while increasing their stake in Ethereum, signaling that wealthy investors anticipate more upside from the world's second most valuable crypto. The Bitcoin whale that recently awakened from a 7-year slumber and then purchased 2.5 billion worth of Ethereum, transferred another 1.1 billion on Friday and resumed purchasing Ether. A whale holding over 5 billion Bitcoin is currently buying Ethereum. Blockchain sleuth Arkham Intelligence wrote on a Friday X post, he just moved 1.1 billion of BTC to a new wallet and has started purchasing Ethereum through Hyperunit HL. This whale bought 2.5 billion of Ether last week, and he is still buying. The address ending in ECB43 first received 1,000 Bitcoin, valued at around 108.2 million across 2 transactions. Shortly afterward, the whale started selling small batches of Bitcoin and buying spot Ethereum. So obviously there has been growing demand for Ethereum. That's why I said if you want to buy Ethereum now and switch into altcoins later, I perfectly understand that. That is a very logical move. And whale demand for Ether has actually increased a lot over the last month, and that's why Ethereum has actually jumped up all the way to 4,900. I do not think that demand is actually going to come down. The staking ETFs on Ethereum, I think, have appeal more than the non-staking ETFs on Bitcoin, so we do have to be aware of that. The Friday switch out from Bitcoin to Ethereum is not an isolated event. Last week, another Bitcoin whale rotated part of its 100,784 Bitcoin stack to acquire 62,914 Ethereum and to create another 135,265 Ether derivatives long position after 7 years of dormancy. So that's what we're actually seeing right now. Analysts pointed to the billions of dollars rotating from Bitcoin to Ethereum as the main reason behind Bitcoin's latest price correction. So both Bitcoin and Ethereum are down about 2% on Saturday, trading hands for 108,338 and 4,379 respectively. Now, they're both down because some whales are actually selling, but there's definitely a lot of rotation from Bitcoin to Ethereum. I think eventually there's going to be some rotation from Bitcoins to altcoins too, as that usually does follow afterwards. And the same reason we're seeing Bitcoin rotating to Ethereum, the Ethereum treasuries, the Ethereum ETFs with staking that are coming up, we're about to get those for other altcoins as well, like Solana, maybe like BNB's filed for one. We got CROs, we got Doge, we got Litecoin, and I do think the SEC is about to open the floodgates and allow all those ETFs through. So that's where I think we're going to get the altcoin burst, and you want to get in ahead of that. Now, once again, if you just want to be safe and buy Ethereum right now, that's perfectly fine, and then rotate as we get closer to October 16th or something. Once those ETFs come through, that is completely understandable. I'm not really sure if we'll see bursts before that. We might have to wait until the FOMC meeting in September to get any real lift in crypto, because people are waiting for that rate cut. And I don't really believe a 25-point rate cut will actually move it too much. I think we need at least 75 basis points. And Jerome Powell is not going to cut it 75 basis points all at once. I don't think he wants to cut it, but there's enough pressure to force him to cut it once. I personally think Jerome Powell will eventually be proven right on his theory that eventually the inflation is going to go up because of the tariffs. If you don't know, the de minimis exception for tariffs did actually expire yesterday, and what that is before Friday, packages that were less than $800 coming into the United States were actually exempt from the Trump tariffs, but now they are no longer exempt from the Trump tariffs. That accounts for something like 92% of all packages coming into the United States. Of course, that sucks for people that buy off Temu, but more importantly, that really sucks for small businesses that depend on these small packages to actually resupply themselves and do other things. So now they're going to be having to pay 30% extra, which means that cost will most likely be passed on to the customers. And you can see last month, the producer price index already went up. I expect it to go up again this month. And of course, next month, I actually believe is going to be the big jump, because remember, Friday is at the end of this month. So the costs for this month will actually not jump on next month's report. The September report for PPI will not actually include the de minimis exception basically ending, because that ended on Friday, which is the last business day of August. But in the October report, we'll see the full effect of that de minimis exception. And that's really something that people need to pay attention to, because I do actually believe that honestly could be pretty devastating to small businesses, and that could trigger inflation a lot. If we see inflation, that will probably affect the entire market as well. But we at least got another month and a half before a really bad report comes in, if it does come in. So we need to take advantage of that time. I know that September is supposed to be bad traditionally for crypto, and it could be. At least the first half of September could not be that great. But I think the second half of the month will definitely be better as we get that FOMC meeting, as we get that rate cut, as we get closer to all the ETF approvals. And you know that Paul Atkins and the SEC is going to be extremely friendly towards crypto with this administration. They're basically just saying essentially anything goes. And I think that will benefit a lot of these projects as we go forward. So I'm pretty positive right now that right now is the time to actually start buying altcoins. And if you want to be safe, right now is the time to buy Ethereum, because I think Bitcoin dominance will continue to actually go down and altcoin dominance will actually go up, based on a lot of macro factors, based on the fact that people are already rotating money from Bitcoin into Ethereum, and based on all the altcoin treasuries that are actually coming up. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.